crew.
Okay, great. We're recording.
Great.
Thanks for agreeing to do this, Ryan. We're really excited to show everyone your show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was supposed to come see your show last Saturday, and then the shit just blew up. Like everything was canceled, so I'm actually really excited to see this.
Yeah, my show has been quarantined, so it's okay.
I saw it pre-quarantine, so I'm really interested in seeing how it looked in the quarantine on a screen. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ryan, maybe just really briefly, do you want to tell people like where you went to school and just like any other quick things, and then maybe spend a little bit of time?
Yeah, for sure. Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. Can you hear all that construction going on?
Yeah, we could, but it's okay. I thought it was a whale or something at first.
No, my studio building is getting built right now. So I apologize. But yeah, hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a full-time ceramic artist, and I guess I'm constantly figuring out what that means. And I guess right now it means educator and fabricator. So I teach at BKLYN Clay and Greenwich House Pottery, and I fabricate out of Greenwich House. And then I also have my own studio in Ridgewood, Queens, where I make sculptures and try and exhibit them, and also do fabrication work there. I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, graduated with a bachelor's in ceramics, and then went on to get an MFA at Alfred University in ceramics as well.
Who's the teacher at Micah?
David East.
Yeah,
he's in New York.
Yeah, yeah, he goes back and forth, right? He's such a I've met him before. Cool.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're visiting you right now. You're in Ridgewood at Plank's Gallery?
Plank Road Gallery. At the front of my studio building. So I just had to move the work down the hall.
That's pretty nice.
My home base, so it's pretty, it worked out good.
Yeah. Yeah, we've also, Cami was nice enough to chat with some of my students today for the class that I teach, and we were talking about how a bunch of us have all this work ready because we were supposed to be in Richmond right now installing a show. Yeah. So instead of you having to like pack all this work up and take it down, now you just get a nice long show up here, which is good.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot less.
Yeah. I mean, the show he means is this studio visit right now.
Yeah.
Like this is your next long show.
Yeah.
This is your solo show, your other solo show.
Yeah, it still happened.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to maybe just start like panning across the gallery space so that everyone can see where we are?
Yeah, absolutely. So go slow. So here we kind of have a install view. So there's 6 freestanding sculptures in the middle, and then a handful of wall works. All ceramic for the most part, besides the stands. Yeah, so the show is called Back Dirt, and it was put on at Plank Road Gallery, like I said, at the front of my studio building. Wyatt and Max curated the show, who run the space here, and they really helped me with choosing the stuff and fabricating the stands and figuring out all of that stuff.
And what's the name of the studio again? Permanent Maintenance?
Permanent Maintenance. Yeah, so it's a couple years old. We've got some more stuff over here.
I love that piece.
Thank you.
Can you just really quick, can you talk about it a little bit before you move on? Because I saw in the pictures, this is the piece that I was like, this one and the sword were the ones that I was really like, whoa, what's that?
Well, I was looking at a lot of sort of like Christian sculptures, like veiled Marys or veiled Christ, but also looking at kind of like draped urns in cemeteries. I don't know if you've seen those around, but
so cool.
I was trying to make something somewhere between like vacuum sealed or religiously draped, really.
That's a really good spot to be, I'd just like to say.
Yeah, somewhere between those two. I think it is a good place to be. And I think that's kind of like the underlying thing with a lot of the work right now is like, how do I do something that is both seems like really sincere, but also is just like really not at the same time. So I think the show really started with working with these pieces, or this one specifically. And I think it all kind of stems from this idea of like suburban wall decor, things that kind of I grew up with in my friends' houses, or just kind of around in the suburbs in Florida, of just stuff that was kind of evocative of ancient ceramics or some sort of prehistory, but as basically just like cheap, meaningless decor.
That pink, it looks like rubber. It looks like a rubber mold. It's ceramic. See,
Yeah,
this
this is
is
all
what
ceramic.
happens, like when you see pictures of something. Like first of all, I'm so surprised that like I can't believe some of these pieces are ceramic, and like I
Yeah.
had no idea, really.
All clay. Well, the stands are steel.
Yeah.
1/4-inch
Aside
steel
from that.
stands that like fit each piece. And then we've got these nice little capped off feet I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, the feet are so
Yeah,
perfect.
this is great, right?
How do you like source these objects that you're like taking molds off of? Like because so many of them do look familiar, and when you say like suburban decor, I can like totally imagine them in like homes growing up. Like Gus and I grew up in suburbia as well. But where do you go to search for these, and like how do you start? Do you start by like looking for specific ones, or are you like going through like, I imagine you could find a lot of these in like dollar stores or delis or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm constantly collecting stuff and kind of just taking photos as I go along. But a lot of them are from like anywhere from like TJ Maxx to Pier 1 Imports to dollar stores. It just really is stuff like that. Stuff that is kind of trying to evoke some sort of like history, but it doesn't really do that, you know, or it more just speaks of age than any specific like time period or place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in things like that, but yeah, I mean, I'm just collecting as I go. But then there's also kind of like a lot of the stuff is found, like these are found imagery, but then these pieces are, this is all kind of fabricated myself, all this imagery on the wall. So I guess I start by collecting normally, and then I kind of respond. I make a piece and then I respond to that piece, and I make another piece and I respond to that one, and it becomes this sort of like, I don't know, it almost feels like chess, like you're playing against yourself in some way, or with myself. But yeah, it all starts with collecting, I think. And a lot of my practice has for, I think, a long time now.
Yeah, I remember when I met you, Ryan, one of the like first things that I remember talking to you about was how you were nervous that the town that we were in Alfred didn't have enough garbage out, and you weren't sure if you were going to be able to find stuff.
It was hard.
Yeah.
I found some things though. So.
Yeah.
We got a question. Do you ever collect things as a kid? Where does the collecting impulse come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think I did collect things as a kid. But, you know, I mean, I'm not like someone like Mark Dion, you know, I don't know if you know his work, but he like really is into documenting, cataloging, collecting, organizing things. Like, so I'm not that intense, but I mean, I was a Boy Scout, so we were kind of like, but no, I'm not like a true collector, you know, I'm more like a gatherer.
Are you like a hoarder and then a Marie Kondo? You like do both? You like hoard everything and then you get rid of everything?
Yeah, I throw a lot of stuff out. So I'm not precious. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
It does.
Ryan, do you want to talk at all more about the stands? Like how you ended up with those in the first place?
Yeah, so the stands, they all fit. Each piece is 1/4-inch cut steel water jet. And then, you know, we've got these legs welded up on here that Wyatt fabricated for the show. I really like that the stands are basically a document of the piece. So I'm thinking of the stands as that, like they are an outline of the piece. Thinking about like field research and documenting objects in the field as you might like encounter them in archaeology, where you're taking kind of dimensions of the pieces as you pull them out. You know, you might take blueprints or footprints, things like that, of where objects might lay on the ground or on a site. So thinking of things like that, but also thinking about like the history of studio furniture in sculpture, you know, right? So that's kind of like I think of that as a convention in sculpture, you know, like maybe like the impulse to put things on casters, or like how that could be like a thing in like postmodern sculptures. Everything is just on wheels, in like the 80s and 90s, and like still is sometimes. So trying to be aware of like studio furniture in sculpture, because they're kind of just like, they look like almost like throwing stools in a lot of ways. They've got kind of similar feet to them that you might find in shop furniture in a ceramic studio. But then just trying to bring it back to like the idea that it is a document for each piece, and it isn't this actual like shop furniture, like fetish in sculpture. You know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah. Kind of like an obsession with things like clamps or ratchet straps, or like just like shop talk stuff.
Right. How do you feel, there's a little bit of like, can you talk a little bit about maybe design trends in your work? Because each they sort of are like markers of, you know, they're sort of like markers of architecture, and also like I see a lot of like, you know, time stamps of design trends. Is that something that you think about, or is that something that you're attracted to? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, well, I guess I'm thinking of them kind of like archetypes of civilization, but like some of them are just like really bad archetypes, or like, or very bad like clip art, you know? So this one might seem like a little more like reverent, or this could be like, oh, civilization, it's kind of like this architectural ruin type thing, but then it's, you know, paired with something that's a little bit more, you know, we've got this like weird stucco, and then it's just this kind of bizarre bathroom scene. So I'm trying to just make sort of like,
really quick, go back to the bathroom scene. Can we see the full frontal? Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah. We actually just take a little bit of time and just sort of pan around each piece.
Go a little slow.
Slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we need to somehow have a camera person.
So this one, yeah, so like the one before this was kind of like found imagery, like I took a mold off of a piece of wall art, where this one is all, you know, hand built completely.
This one feels like it could be, I mean, it feels like ancient, and then it could be 80s, and then it could be now. I really like this specific piece. It's like hard to get a time on it, which I really like.
Yeah, I like that you said that. I think that's good. I'm into that idea. Because I think that's like where the work started, is kind of this idea of like an ambiguous time, period, or like is sort of ambiguous in how it should be dated.
And I mean, is this also, it also feels like you're talking a little bit about like the trickle down effect of craft. No? Can you talk about how your feelings about craft
About craft? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot about pottery, like nonstop. I think I like to tell myself that I'm a sculptor, you know, just a general sculptor, but really I think about pots most of the day. So that presents me with certain problems when I'm trying to make sculptures, but also solutions, I think. Because really I just love pottery more than I like sculptures. It's really true. But I'm not that good of a craftsman. So I don't think there's anything in here that's that well crafted. But I am trying to be ultra aware of my, like the lineage of where I come from as far as my education, and the people who've trained me. Because I do think a lot about, and I think this is true in ceramics and other crafts fields, is that we might think about our lineage in a different way than other artists, or maybe because there's this history of apprenticeship in ceramics. So I'm obsessed with like thinking about my lineage and where I've came from and who's trained me. And, you know, it's been artists who are obsessed with architecture and obsessed with craft and obsessed with pottery. So yeah, I mean, I try and stay aware of that.
Ryan,
but I'm kind of a bad craftsman.
I mean,
yeah.
I think a lot of us could say that. But I also feel like to be good at something, I mean, there's so many facets of ceramics. Like I was talking about it a little bit this morning. Like, you know, just to sit there and throw the same thing takes 7 years. Like, so I feel like, you know,
Yeah.
Keith Simpson called himself a ceramics generalist, which I think is just sort of a great way to like call yourself, if you have to call yourself something, you know.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you ever so there was a period when we were in school together where it seemed like nobody wanted to be a ceramic artist, everyone just wanted to be a sculptor that happened to work with clay. And
yeah.
I remember sort of saying things like that, and I really wanted to go to like the University of Washington or the University of Minnesota that had gotten rid of their ceramics departments.
Yeah.
But did you ever feel that way? Or like, have you always had this love of pottery?
I mean, I do feel that way. Well, I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but I can talk about what I think you're talking about.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I do think that people are like very careful with the way they want to kind of like classify themselves. Like, oh, I use clay, but it's like I use it this way and not that way. You know, there's always something like that. And I've kind of stopped thinking about that. And I think teaching has helped me stop thinking about that. And that's been really important, is like teaching as kind of an extension of just my studio practice, in the sense that it's my job to just know stuff and tell people that it's out there. And that's all that's what the main part of my job is, and not to really judge whether one thing is better or worse, or, you know, it's more just about problem solving to me. So for me, like, I want to know all the tricks I can from all the potters, all the wood firers, all the slip casters, to me, I just like to keep my hands busy, really. So I try not to think too much about it for my own work now, because I really do like making pots now.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite cups at the studio is one you made as a demo, I think.
Thank you. And I do identify with the word potter now, and I probably would not have like a year ago.
Whoa, that's big.
Yeah.
This is for prosperity, like this is forever, just FYI. Okay.
Yeah, like
you said it.
My dad would always call me a potter, and it would always kind of upset me, but no, I take that with pride now. Because I've now made pots for a living for several years now, whether it's for my own work or not. That's been my bread and butter, is making pots for other people right now. So
Yeah, I've seen your teapot demo. I think you're a potter.
Yeah. So like, that's been nice.
Ryan, do you want to just talk a little bit about what you have been doing for fabrication work? Like how, I mean, just the idea of like throwing all day as a fabricator is such a, which you were doing for a little bit, right? You were throwing all, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing lately, is just a couple days a week throwing pots for a big exhibition for another artist. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of just like teaching is another extension of my studio practice, is like, how do I just know how to make things and not really judge whether it's good or bad or whether I like it or not, is not really like a question. It's just, let's do the thing. So yeah, when I moved to New York, that was kind of made possible because I landed a job at John O. Pandolfi's making dinnerware for him. So we would, he taught me kind of like production stuff. And at that point I got comfortable with just like figuring out how to make as many pieces as I could a day through his processes and, you know, his whole studio and their guidance, and, you know, learning to do it their way, and which I thought was super refreshing after grad school. It was going to work at a dinnerware company where it was like, don't be creative, learn their process, and just like learning how to not make suggestions as like a really good life skill is like learning when to like not talk and just like do the job how someone asked you to, and not be like, oh, well, you should do it this way, or like I learned this other way, or have you seen this artist? It's just like, it doesn't matter, just like make the thing how they told you. So like,
I mean, that's actually kind of a big deal, to be to be an assistant to another artist. Like, that is the job. It's really, because you put yourself away while you're in that space. It's actually, nobody really talks about it that much. You know what I mean? It's sort of this like secret amongst artists, like like you don't have feelings anymore. You know, it's like kind of, I'm glad you're talking about it, actually.
And yeah, it can feel tragic at first, but it no longer is that. It feels refreshing to me, you know, and I really like it.
Info at BrooklynClay.com says that's a relief for artists. So that's sweet.
Yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. So yeah, I was doing that, making dinnerware, and then I stopped doing that to just kind of do fabrication, freelance out of my own studio when I can, like 2 days a week, maybe sometimes all days a week. So yeah, I've been working for artists, making like bus heads. I just worked on a big show that went up in the city where I had to make a bunch of well, they weren't slip casts, but they were press molded heads. And then I've been also throwing like 2 or 3 days a week, making like 30 big vases for a big show at a museum, or a museum exhibition for another artist, of course. And that's been really nice too, just to make stuff that way for a museum show, and like be asked to make objects that are much nicer than I would ever make for myself. So that's the other thing too, is like craft has been sort of reintroduced to me in that way too, is also like, I might not like do something over for my own work. I might be like, oh, that's a happy accident, let's go with it. But like when you're doing it for other people, it's like, no, let's do it again. And if it doesn't work, we'll do it again. And we'll figure it out and make it exactly how they want. And that's been really nice.
I feel I did a lot of fabrication too. I still do some, you know, but I feel like when every project that I worked on with someone, I learned something, like some skill that I honed some skill that I never had. And then like later on, it like comes out in some of the pieces that I make. Just saying, like, it's really, yeah, like you get really good at this one thing and that you can't really use, but if you put it away for a while, it can like come out a different way. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. That's happening already.
Yes, that's great. Like, you know, when the artist is like, that looks like my piece, I mean, that's not cool, I guess.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what? Run away.
Yeah.
Can we go back to talking about, I've been thinking a lot about lately, people that make cups and people that make functional ware and also make sculpture. And do you think about the relationship between your sculpture and your functional work, or do you separate them completely? Because I've seen your pottery and it's so beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, in a lot of ways they're connected, in a lot of ways they're different. So like, I don't try and make my pots look like my sculptures, but
That's kind of what I'm asking exactly. Yeah.
with my sculptures, I'm always thinking about pots, you know, but it's never my pots. So it's kind of like a loop that goes to a dead end. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, they're separate, but like, I think of when I make pots, like for me, it's more like a good way to think about all these things that relate to my larger work. Like it's an exercise in composition and color and balance and, you know, in all of the things that make the sculpture. So I don't think of them as like, there's not too much of a hierarchy, but they're not, I wouldn't call them like the same body of work ever. Where like maybe I was watching your show or your interview with Corey Mahoney, like maybe some of those cups
Right?
are an extension of that body of work, where I would think of them as not an extension of one another.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you were talking, I just remember because I was watching that yesterday and you were like, let's look at those cups. They look exactly like your sculptures.
Yeah, but I mean, this, you know, I'm just curious about it, just for across the board. Like, it's just something that I've been noticing lately. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There's no answer. It's like, cool. Because
I will say it's easier for me to make pottery than it is for me to make sculpture. And sometimes it's much more fulfilling.
So when you're starting a new body of work, or when you're just like in the studio, Ryan, do you start from like, are you sketching and planning pieces out, or are you just like working, like getting materials in there and starting to build things and then sort of seeing where they end up? Because the work tends to look pretty playful a lot of times, not always, but is that how they actually come about?
I definitely play a lot in the studio. Like I normally have a loose idea of what I want to do. Like with this show, it was mostly like I had ideas about the imagery, what the imagery needed to be, and then like what the sculptural form was. I was kind of comfortable with that being whatever as I made the thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't sketch too much really. How I work really is I make as much bisque as I possibly can. And I don't think too much about how it works or if it looks good or if it's like what it's gonna be. I just make a ton of bisque and I fill my studio up with it. And then I just stack things and I move things around for like 2 months. Like I'll just clear everything out of my studio and make it clean. And I just have a room of bisque. And then I just like look at the bisque for a long time. You know, like turn it upside down, turn it this way, like throw everything in a corner, like stack everything up really tall, spread everything out equal distance. And I play with how I encounter it the most. And what I mean by that is like one of the best things that I got in graduate school was from Linda Sikora. And if you look at her work and you look at my work, there's nothing really super related at all, besides that we both love pots, and I think you can see that in the work. But her advice to me was really helpful as a sculptor, and she always advised me to set things up in my studio and to go like leave my studio and then come back. So a lot of it is about like arranging the work and then like leaving the room, and then it's about that moment when I enter the room again. It sounds kind of like cheesy, but I normally figure a lot out within like the first second if I enter a room about like the composition of the thing, or like if it needs to just be moved over or something. So I do a lot of that. So most of my practice is about like space away from the work in a lot of ways, or like setting something up and then just giving myself time to think about it.
I mean, from the pieces and from what I get is like you're kind of setting up these scenarios where where ceramics, the material, kind of reflects on itself. So it's like you're sort of, it's like self-reflecting. And in each piece sort of is a mirror of its own history. You know what I mean? So I feel like that you coming in, like almost like you walking away from them is giving them time to reach almost the maturity that, you know what I mean? It's like so weird. Like this
Yeah.
weird time kind of circle that you're in, where you're like the sort of like master of time now.
I like that a lot. No, I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense, and that like resonates with me completely.
Good. I'm happy that, I mean, they're nice to see. And also, so let's talk like just a little bit about surfaces. So
Yeah.
because
Switch this around.
like what do you like when you start thinking about surfaces, like where's your head at? Like what are you looking at?
Well, these are all like based off of kind of like stucco that I saw in Florida kind of growing up, but there's also a lot of stuff like this in Bushwick, actually, just weird stucco.
So much stucco in Bushwick.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so much.
So with these kind of more stuccoed pieces, I was thinking about just trying to reference that sort of like quick architecture type things, like the way that you see stucco in Florida is normally on these sort of just like all sorts of weird buildings. Some of them are really cheap, some of them are really elegant, but to me, I was leaning towards more so like suburban weird stucco, suburban like beach house type thing. So that's where this kind of surface came from. This is kind of like what I think is the most successful ceramic surface in the show. I think there's something about the way that this kind of texture came out of the mold, and then with the gradient spray on it, I think really worked. So this is kind of where I want to go next, is just continue more with this kind of clay and glaze match right here and play with that. But not everything is ceramic. So these are all graphite.
What do you mean?
I think, like this is graphite on bisqueware.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, cool.
So that one's graphite, and this one's graphite.
Oh, that's how you do it. Yeah, and then what do you seal it with?
It's graphite mixed with a water-based poly.
Yeah, cool.
So and then I brush it on. So, but then this is ceramic. So there's another black that's ceramic. So I think going back to like the craft thing is I really struggle with surface for sure. Like maybe the show is working, but I don't think of myself as like a surface person, you know?
Well, maybe I think, Cami, did you have any other questions for Ryan? Or Anders?
Yeah, Anders, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just gonna go mix up some graphite and water-based.
No, I was almost gonna be like, so what's the ratio of
There's no ratio at all. Everyone use this.
I can relate to like what you're saying about not thinking about yourself as like a surface person, but like I'm always trying to figure out processes that just kind of work, and like that arrowhead piece is like so insane in person, and like on a screen it's like so confusing, and then it just like it doesn't look ceramic but it is, and like it's so visually like satisfying. Yeah, I think there's so much to happen with that process. So
Thank you.
You are a surface person at times, Ryan.
Thank you. Well, I'm trying to
you a potter.
figure that out.
Well, baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah, there's so much art that's about glaze, and I can't do it as good as the people who make work about glaze, how they can do it. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about surface right now.
Yeah.
Love, hate.
Well, thanks so much for showing us your studio. I mean, your show.
Thank you so much.
I think what I'll do really quick is switch it so that if people have any other questions that you can unmute yourself. You should be able to now and ask a question if you have any, and if not, we'll wrap this up. But yeah, thanks a lot, Ryan. This has been great. So
thank you, Ryan.
Does anybody have?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
wow. Okay, great. Looks like our questions were so comprehensive that we wiped everyone's out.
Ryan,
Perfect.
do you know how much longer the show is going to be up for?
It's done.
It's done.
No more.
Thank you so much for showing us the space.
Yeah, thank you, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.